Chiefs Kingdom. Welcome in to the latest edition of the Out of Structure podcast on the Arrowhead Pride Podcast Network. Appreciate you joining us today. Snowy day in Chiefs Kingdom, no matter if you're in the Kansas City Metro or not. But Ron Kopp Jr. here, lead analyst at the site. With me, as always, my guy, Matt Stagner. Stags, how you surviving the snow right now? How you feeling?
Man, I'm hunkered down in the basement here. It's it's one of those days. I'm in Iowa, so it's even worse probably than what you have there in KC. But by the way, before we get into this podcast, there was a big game that happened this week, a championship game of sorts that ended in the Arrowhead Pride Fantasy Football League. How did that end, Ron?
The sneak attack. Wow. Stags coming in with the sneak attack right out the gate. Yes. The fantasy championship came down to me and Stags in the championship. And wow, 3 point. Was it a 3 point difference? 2 point, like a little more than 2 points, maybe?
Yeah, over a 2-week championship round. That's a
featuring week 18.
I got a just great special hat tip to the Eagles offense for helping me out there.
Yeah, I have Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown led me to the promised land all year, and week 18 was probably not the greatest move in the fantasy league, but hey, it's okay. Stags won it. We definitely should organize the winnings there. I think we just donate to charity of your choice. So you got to pick one of those.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But when it comes to the actual Chiefs game this week, there was some good news as well. I felt like there was some positivity around this team that maybe we haven't seen all season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of not a fun game to watch. Anyone who sat through the Week 18 finale where the Chiefs did end up winning 13-12, kind of a muck fest. Got the game-winning field goal at the end, but you're right. I think not only was it nice to get the players rest, I think that's just good vibes in general. Get those guys, hanging out. Hey, hanging out in the LA sun. Maybe get some vitamin D while they're out there, right? Get their toes in the sand. Maybe get some beach rehab. But then also, I think the theme of the game, or the story of the game, was definitely Chris Jones' sack, getting it in the third quarter after disrupting the backfield so many times throughout the game. I think he ended up with 12 pressures. Actually, I should check that before we get too far. I saw someone.
Yeah, I think that's right.
But yeah, that tells you how much money talks. I mean, a guy that he can have a dominant performance like that. We've seen him have them, but when that $1.25 million was on the line, Stags, that dude was unblockable. The Easton stick was just very good at getting rid of it for a long part of the game. But he got to it, Stags. How'd you feel about that whole agonizing process, honestly, for most of the game?
Yeah, you're holding your breath as people start getting injured in that game. You saw it happen around the league and with the Kansas City Chiefs. So there was obviously some concern there, but it was a lot of fun. I was super happy when he got it. And the way the team reacted, that was – that was spectacular. Really seeing how excited they were for him, how everybody was pulling for him to get that incentive. It really made me feel like, hey, there's some good vibes around that team. Not just that, but also a little bit now going back to the Bengals game. I think there was some positivity there. They were having some fun on the sidelines, which they maybe haven't always seen.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I thought this. I felt the same way. As soon as he got the sack, the reaction, I was standing up in my living room. It was a very exciting moment too. Honestly, like I was happy for Chris because I think we can talk about his counseling and how he got to the point where he needed to have an incentive like that in his contract to get to that point when he missed the first game of the season. But all that to say, the huddle around him on the sideline. Yeah, no, chasing him down. The coaches coming up and hugging him. The Chiefs released a good social clip with kind of the mic behind the scenes of that. I think the last two games have been good vibes. I mean, that's what you want after a Christmas Day disaster. Like, it was as low vibes as possible at that point. And they have really rebounded strong these last two games to go into the postseason. And I think not only is it a team good vibes, but it's good to make Chris a happy man, because this dude's a difference maker, and you saw what he can do when he's properly motivated. And I don't know, that was good to see him in the middle, just wrecking stuff. That's got to be a part in the playoffs if they're going to want to go on a run.
Yeah, properly motivated, but also just playing with reckless abandon, right? Like there was no let's wait and see if there's a run. There's no like hey, maybe
Yeah,
this is
no,
a screen. It was just full forward all the time.
I'd say, yeah, there was one play actually. I remember, I think it was like a 3rd and 2. He just got right through because obviously he's looking for the sack, and they happened to run it, and he just he just destroyed the run play. I think someone else cleaned it up, but it was just hilarious just seeing Chris just go through them, Easton Stick hopelessly running around. I mean, he did a good job maneuvering around it, but shout out the reserves for finishing off, Blaine Gabbert for leading the game winning field goal drive. That was good to see. Kind of everyone stepping up, right? Besides, Chris is obviously the one we see every week, but any favorite guys? We don't see a lot of yours that stepped up on Saturday, Sunday. Excuse me.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about it in the winners losers column this week. Obviously, Mike Edwards with the big 97-yard touchdown.
Oh, yeah.
He's been kind of an up and down player, but he's known to have this nose for the football and ability to return for touchdown, which is like the 4th time I think in his career that he's done that. There's also good signs, at least in small bursts, out of basically all the other defensive linemen. So I listed Felix Andubuike, Uzama, Tershawn Wharton, Neil Farrell, BJ Thompson, Malik Herring. Like there was contributions out of all of those guys, which is again what you love to see.
Dude, yeah, I'm glad you pointed out the DL because it was nice to see guys like Neil Farrell for the first time. That dude's big. That dude's gonna be a space eater if they need him to be in the postseason. Especially in a game coming up like maybe against potentially Miami. If they face these run heavy teams. So yeah, Neil Edwards was definitely, or Neil Farrell, excuse me, was definitely one I was excited to see more of. How'd you think about BJ Thompson the couple times he kind of seemed to get around the corner? He's long, lanky, but he does fly off the ball, and he did kind of collapse the pocket. It felt like a couple times. I don't know. It was good to see. Yeah, it was good to see some of the DL.
Yeah, little flashes of promise. This is kind of a nice check-in. I keep calling it the preseason of the postseason, which is really, a nice opportunity to see what have these guys been doing all year? Have they developed? Have they gotten better? They look like they can contribute. There's not too many of them that you think are probably going to contribute in this particular postseason, but there's definitely some that could have a role next year. Now, there is one guy I thought who put up a performance this week that gives you at least a glimmer of hope that it could translate, that it could be part of the postseason plan this year. And that was McCole Hardman. What do you think about his day overall?
Yeah, I'd say on offense, we did get a few players that maybe made a case that why they should be considered more for postseason PT. But it led with McCole. I'm going to write about him for the site this week because it was good to see the ways he made plays, man. First of all, the strong catching, Stags, like catching through traffic. Like, hello, Chiefs. The Chiefs have been asking that from the receivers all year to be strong, in tight windows, catching – with defenders maybe on them,
That's
closing.
never been like what you know him for, like
Right. That's the last person you'd ask for them or seek, for them to get that from. But the way he did it on Sunday was awesome. The first one down the field, he sets up the deep crosser well by getting vertical and then coming over. It kind of creates a separation. But the corner does get on it. The ball does hang a little bit. He has to go up with two hands, which is nice to see, right? He doesn't try to wait on it. He goes up with two hands and he just shrugs the dude off as he's trying to get the ball away from him. He keeps running for another 10, 15 yards. I mean, just an awesome play, something they need from the receivers, like I said. And there was another one later in the game where he caught a slant over the middle to convert a third down. A linebacker actually was kind of on him, had the hand kind of on the ball at the catch point, shakes it off, runs for another, 5-10 yards. It was good to see that from McCole, man. Now, he did kind of quit on a route late in the game. And Gabbert, it wasn't late in the game. It was before halftime, but Gabbert threw it and it was an interception. We remember that. And that's something we've seen from McCole, right? As a negative thing a lot in the past. But yeah, that's the thing is McCole is definitely, someone that the team could rely on more in the postseason, needing more from the receivers in general. He's done it. He's won 2 Super Bowls with this team. It's hard to forget that he was a part of that 2019 team just as much as he was, the 2022 team this last year. So he's a vet. He's someone that they could kind of lean on maybe in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, McCole had 6 catches on 77 yards. The longest one, that 37-yard where he got away from the defender. It was on 11 targets, so the efficiency wasn't amazing. There was a couple of plays where the broadcast crew pointed out that maybe he gave up on a route that caused an interception, and there was the one long pass down the sideline that he caught inbounds, but he had stepped out prior to. So there was a couple little mental mistakes. But I kind of think you can take that if the production's there.
Well, yeah, just think about who he would be playing over in the postseason potentially. Tony is obviously, lost, like a role on this team to an extent. I mean, Blaine Gabbert thought he was going to play in week 18. If you listen to him heading into the game, he was talked about as a reserve along with McCole. Sky is obviously still on IR. Richie James, someone that we both, and maybe, I think everyone's kind of said, hey, someone that maybe should get more run, but still really hasn't. And, honestly just doesn't have the same top end, game breaking, like a big play ability like McCole does. And that's the thing with McCole that I did mention. Your internet cut out for a second. So so the people know, I'll just repeat it for you. But just that, hey, he's been here. He's done that, right? Like McCole's been for both playoff runs. Like he was there 2019 and 2022. So there's a good chance that McCole steps up.
A big play rookie McCole Hardman in the playoffs. I think that trade to get him back was well worth it.
Yeah, but he wasn't the only one on offense that I think, again, stated a case that maybe they should get more consideration. A guy like LaMichael Pirine, I keep wanting to say Samaj. That is his cousin, who's also a good player in the NFL. But LaMichael Pirine, who we all saw in the preseason could maybe do something, had a little movement to him for his size. He's kind of a bigger back. But you saw it in this game. What I kind of I feel like he just attacked the line of scrimmage as a runner, something that we don't see from the other backs outside of Pacheco. You see it from Pacheco, right? He does have that urgency, that sense of urgency to get to the line of scrimmage, get to the hole, but you don't see it as much from the other, like Jerick McKinnon and Clyde. They're more of guys that once they get to the hole, maybe they can, make something happen. But I liked that from Pirine. It's something that if they do have to get to a run script in a cold weather game, maybe, in some of these games, or when they're defending a lead potentially with this defense, we've talked about, this offense maybe needing to be more relying on the run game, relying on, low scoring affairs. It felt like, having someone like him, maybe instead of Clyde, and maybe Clyde can be more of like a pass catching guy if they need him to be. I don't know. I kind of like Pirine as a handoff guy. Did you like what you saw from him?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't spectacular. He had 21 carries for 76 yards, so average 3.6 yards per carry. He did have a good catch, a 25-yard catch and run. So I think altogether, he put together a nice game.
Yeah, that catch and run was nice. Sorry, but he ran that route well. The ball was put on him really well too. But yeah, he gained steam. So
yeah,
someone that
I still think he's only a deep injury cut type guy. I mean, would you rather have him or Pacheco taking your handoffs? I think that's pretty clear.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. This is more, he specifically is more, to spell Pacheco or in case of injury more so than McCole is like McCole could naturally step up, right? So it is different in that case. The other instance of that too, though, Stags, was Joe Thuney kicking out the left tackle, right? In terms of, and that's going to be something, a theme of this postseason, hopefully. And we're going to see this today, actually, Tuesday, they'll have practice and we'll see maybe some designations, but what are they going to do at left tackle? Because Prince Tega Winogo, who, would be maybe the backup left tackle, is on IR still. Mm-hmm. And obviously, Wanye went out with the concussion in this game and he's going to be in concussion protocol. They slid Jawan Taylor to left tackle in this game, and that ended up with him getting hurt right away, although he re-entered the game after that. So, yeah, I think, and I want what do you think? But, like, this could be a situation where Thuney's the best option for them if all things kind of work out that way at left tackle.
Yeah, I've always kind of hated this narrative that, he's somehow the best left tackle on the team and they should slide him out. And some of it, I think people look at his contract and like, oh, he makes a lot of money, he should be a left tackle. I definitely think he's an emergency option, but he's a really good one. You don't want him going through the playoffs with him at left tackle. mixes up the whole line in some ways. It was interesting in this game, by the way, off topic though, that they were trying out different players at different positions a little bit. Creed Humphrey played most of the game at guard because Allegretti was playing center with his guy Gabbert. So there was some movement around, some shuffling of that offensive line. Some of it on purpose, some of it due to injury. But the versatility can only help you when it comes to those emergency situations. But you just got to hope. You got to hope that that Wanye can go, that Taylor can go. I don't know that Lucas Niang is probably, he's your other option at tackle, but he still can't play both sides. So it'll get interesting if one or both of those guys can't go.
Yeah, right. No, the Tooney thing is definitely, emergency, but it's one of those things where, I think it's a better option than, putting Niang there or sliding Taylor over there and putting Niang at right tackle. I would rather put Allegretti at left guard and put Tooney at left tackle in a situation like that if they really did not have Wanye Morris. And so it sucks to be in that situation. It feels like 2020 all over again, at the end of the season when the offensive line got jumbled up like that. You hope that's not the case. You hope Wanye is good to go. But yeah, I mean, even if you say Blaine Gabbert, I mean, we saw Chad Henne have to step up for the Chiefs in the postseason in the past, and it was good to see him get, not the best game ever, but a game under his belt in this game, and he did lead that game-winning drive where he kind of tucked it and run a couple times, played conservative, handed the ball off and got them into field goal position. That was good to see because if he is having to be called up in the postseason, I mean, you don't want him to do much more than that. So, you don't want him to try to be a hero. So, yeah, it was good to see him kind of manage the clock.
Yeah, he showed off those wheels that you didn't expect to see on that last drive. That was awesome. One more on the positive side. This is on defense. Cam Jones, who's been, largely a special teams contributor, if active at all, really showed up and was all over the field as a linebacker. 12 tackles, 11 of them solo. Just kept showing up over and over and over again around the ball, right where he needed to be. Somebody that could be some depth for the future and something that's, you don't necessarily want that to happen in the playoffs, but gives you a little bit of hope that there's some bench strength there.
Yeah, no, that was cool to see because he was flying all over the place. All the defensive backs and back end players were linebackers and DBs. But he, ended up leading the team in tackles. He had the one blitz where, he pressured and kind of forced Stick to come out of the pocket. So definitely cool to see him step up because he's been on the 53 all year, So it's someone that they obviously like for the future. So he's someone that maybe next year we're kind of looking at like Leo Chenal as a kind of a nice, third or fourth linebacker. You never know.
Yeah. Now, there was a couple guys who didn't distinguish themselves, and I think everybody was hoping they would. Justin Ross, didn't do a whole lot, plus got injured again. That definitely wasn't what you hoped to see from him. There was Richie James fumbled a punt. He recovered it himself, but you don't love to see some of those things. Don't take a whole lot from this final game, but definitely the Justin Ross hype train has once again derailed, I think.
Yeah, no, it's just there shouldn't be too much of a hype train. I did think though, I was excited. It seemed like all the coaches and the players were excited to see him in a more expanded role. So I think they kind of maybe were excited themselves. So I did highlight him in my 5 things to watch. And yeah, he did get a few targets, just nothing too reasonable or too big. He had the one small catch where he kind of went up and got it and continued the field for a first down.
Yeah, that was good.
But no, I think that's stuff that we all knew he could do. So yeah, so we'll see. Again, it's something that I know we talked about in the last pod, but they were starting to work him into the red zone, the starting offense in the Bengals game. So maybe in this wild card game coming up, maybe you'll see, something where to that effect where they kind of work him into those situations.
Well, anything else on this game before we start looking ahead? I mean, this is, again, essentially a preseason game in Week 18. Not a lot you can take from it. Are you ready to talk playoffs, or you have anything else for us?
Well, you know what? I'm going to say this, Stags, because I've obviously had a pessimistic segment on this podcast, heading into the postseason. But you know what? It's over. No more pessimistic segments. It's playoff time. It's optimistic time.
All right.
Cut party pooper. No more party pooper at all. Hey, we're talking about all positivity, all good vibes heading into the postseason now. We're here now, right? I'm not going to be, rooting on this team to lose. No one's rooting on this team to lose. We're just realistic, and hey, I think there's a path to this team still winning, and that starts with Miami, right? I'm excited for this game, Stags. I am fired up for the game on Saturday night. I will be in attendance, although that I maybe shouldn't tell people my record of being in attendance this year because that may not make people feel good. But I can't miss, Tyreek's return to Arrowhead. The kind of the vibes from that, the energy from that. I really think no matter what the temperature is, that's going to be, kind of the theme of the game. And I think it's going to make it for an awesome atmosphere. So I don't know, Stags, how fired up are you for kind of the matchup we're getting in the first round?
Yeah, don't anticipate a warm welcome for the Dolphins in Kansas City. It's going to be cold. The rest of the matchup is going to be fun. I think this is a strength on strength. They've got a really good offense going up against the Chiefs defense, which has been really good all year. The Miami defense is pretty banged up, so you could see maybe that's not their strength, and the Chiefs offense hasn't been their strength either. So it's going to be it's going to be interesting. I think anything could happen, but I'm excited to see how it plays out. Speaking of warm welcomes, though, is this going to be the coldest game in Arrowhead history or close to it?
It sounds like it. Although I was on Twitter today or yesterday I tweeted out a memory of the last time I was at the coldest game I could remember, which was way back 2016, long time ago now. Wow. And the Chiefs were playing the Raiders at home, and it was in the negatives. Feels like I remember it was single digits, just in general before the wind. And I always say that's the coldest game I've ever been to. And that was, I think, 8 degrees. This says, for the forecast for Saturday night, says it's topping at 10 degrees, but it feels like it could be 3 degrees or in the negative. But there are up to 26 mile per hour wind gusts that could be happening, which just feels like that could really be the kicker there. So I don't know. I was starting to look back and think of the coldest games in Arrowhead history. And
was that a pun intended that the wind is going to be the kicker? It's going to be. It would be difficult on kickers, and that's been the case in the past in the cold weather games, right?
Oh my God! Yeah, what a lead in. Because I think famously the Lynn Elliott game was very cold, where he missed the field goals in the 1995 playoffs to lose to the Colts and doom that season. That was kind of the first of the playoff heartbreaks, at home, at least at home. Obviously I know 93, that was pretty heartbreaking in the AFC ship too. But that was I wasn't alive, so I can't attest to that one. I was at the Raiders game I mentioned, but I was also at the 2018 AFC Championship against the Patriots. And that's the thing is I had some people tell me they thought the Patriots game was colder. Maybe I was just more prepared for that game, and that makes sense because I was an older gentleman. I was a little more prepared, and may not have been as dumb as my 2016 version of myself. But I feel like the 2016 game was colder. And Stags, I will say the cool thing about the 2016 game is that was Tyreek's it was a big moment for Tyreek his rookie year. Punt return touchdown, breaks it against the Raiders. Travis hits the dance on Marquette King afterwards. Very pivotal moment. Everyone was chanting Tyreek's name before the punt return. One of my all-time Arrowhead moments, and it's just kind of cool that we get to see another Tyreek because he can play in the cold. There's no doubt about it. I don't think Tyreek. I think Tyreek can play in the cold. He's done it here plenty. So this is not to say. I think we're in for a Tyreek versus Arrowhead game. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm still reeling over the fact that you said you weren't alive in 1995. That was my junior year in high
not
school.
Even close. Well, not 3 years out. Come on, I should give myself a little more credit.
What's that?
3 years out. I was 3 years out.
Yeah, that's making me feel old here. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how both teams handle the cold. I think, ideally it's a big Pacheco game. And Rashee Rice as well. I think those are guys that can kind of punish the defense and make them think twice when they're coming up to make a tackle. When it's that cold, it hurts a little bit more. Or is that the key to the game, or do you see something else on the Chiefs' offense that could work?
No, I think running the ball will definitely be key. We'll get more in depth after the break on exactly what the Dolphins are dealing with. But I just think in general, in a cold game, this is why you do need a run game, because the pass game won't be as easy. It won't be as easy to just drop back and throw 50 times, just plainly because your hands get cold as a receiver, and you don't want to get hit as much, over the middle. So you might be a little, cautious going over the middle. I think, linemen, especially for linemen and running backs too, it's just easier to just move forward, go forward, keep setting the tone, especially with like a runner like Pacheco. Just kind of, keep the pace of the game. And obviously, in the postseason, if you get a lead, it's a great way to keep it, defend it, and keep the ball away from the other team. So yeah, I definitely think running the ball is the key. We've been talking about it all season or leading to this point, even if it wasn't a cold game. But I think it sets up very well for the team to lean on the ground game.
Absolutely. This might be a defensive battle on the Chiefs side once again as they redefine themselves as a defensive team throughout the playoffs here. Try to keep the score low, try to run the ball a little bit more, use the focused offense around the guys that actually can get the job done now. Tell you what, let's take an early break here. Let's hear from our sponsors. But as always, we'll get to your favorite game. What NFL player am I? The mini game, the crossover grid, whatever you want to call it. Who's played for the Chiefs and the Dolphins that you're going to stump me with today?
All right. What NFL player am I? We already did Chiefs and Dolphins this year, but I'm going to go a little deeper for this one. So, I'm going to say it. I'm one of the few quarterbacks that have played for the Chiefs and the Dolphins. I started in Miami, but then ended with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I did end up winning a Super Bowl, but not for either team. Who am I? Stags, you got to tell me.
Ooh, thought I had it until that last clue there. We'll get to that plus more of your questions after the break, so stick with us on the Out of Structure podcast. And we're back on the Out of Structure podcast. Matt Stagner with Ron Kopp Jr. I think Ron may have just stumped me for one of the first times this season on the What NFL Player Am I game. A quarterback who played for both the Chiefs and the Dolphins, didn't win the Super Bowl until after he left the Chiefs. That's
it's not exactly what I said, but we'll get to it.
Okay. Well, I was thinking Chad Henne, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that fits the last part of that hint.
It could have been Trent Green. It could have been Matt Moore. It could have been Tyler Thigpen, even, who is dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. But no, this is Damon. Well, I mean, not. They didn't all win Super Bowls, I should say. But this is Damon Heward, actually, who, backed up Trent Green in 2006, kind of helped the team go to the playoffs that year. That was like one of my first years really getting into the Chiefs. So he's always been a big quarterback in my eyes. But yeah, he played for Miami his first 3 years, went to New England, helped them win the Super Bowl in 2003, backing up Tom Brady. And actually, what stands out to me from that is there's an America's Game, the NFL Network documentary thing, each Super Bowl winner. And apparently Damon Heward was just like super good at scout teaming for Peyton Manning in the playoffs. And they all credited Damon Heward for helping them beat Peyton Manning in the playoffs because he was so good at mocking him in scout teams. So that's Damon Heward's legacy, is that.
That's great. That's a good deep cut. I had completely forgotten that he went to play with Brady after that. That's that part of his NFL career slipped my mind. Didn't exactly have the most stellar time here in Kansas City, so I didn't even realize he went on after that.
No, his claim to fame, honestly, Stags, is that in 2006, Trent Green goes out week 1, right, with the concussion against the Bengals. And Damon Heward comes in, and I remember, we obviously go to the playoffs barely at the end of the season. The Niners beat the Broncos in week 17 to help us get in. And Damon Heward finished with the second best passer rating in the NFL all season, just behind Peyton Manning. And then they went back to Trent Green for the playoffs. So, Damon Heward should have got the chance. I'm here to say.
Wow, he's the Rich Gannon from the Elvis Grbac controversy.
Exactly. That was me as what would I have been, 8 years old? That was me. No, 10 years old. No, 8. I can't do math.
Man, I'm getting old. My memory is fading from that time. But let's get to your questions. Previewing the Dolphins game primarily. Our guy Ed Holinsky. How are you feeling about the Dolphins Chiefs matchup, and how jacked up will Tyreek Hill be coming back to KC?
Well, yeah, I know we talked about the Tyreek part of it, but to get specifically with the Dolphins Chiefs matchup, man, I think the one team in the AFC that's coming in, maybe, when we talk about Chiefs having good vibes, but, the Dolphins have as bad of vibes as anybody in the AFC coming in just because, first of all, they lost that Week 18 game to Buffalo at home that would have given them, a home game right away. Not only that, though, they have lost more players to injury, even more than they already had. So their starting edge rushers, Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, both good players, were already out before Week 18. They had injured, and they're out for the season. But now they're going to be missing linebackers Jerome Baker and Andrew Van Ginkel as well. And Van Ginkel's a nice edge rusher for them as well. He'll make plays in the pass game. He's not going to be playing now. That's three of their best edge rushers not playing all of a sudden. Jerome Baker is he was a playmaker, in that Mike position. And then Xavier Howard is not expected to make it back yet. He's been injured. He's missed some time, and they don't expect him to make it back for this game either. So you're talking about a huge chunk of the Dolphins starting defense not taking the field in this wild card game. And that's where the Chiefs definitely have to take advantage, not only protecting, right, because the edge rushers aren't going to be there. The offensive tackle should have an easier time. Although, hey, old friend Melvin Ingram is one of those guys. So we'll see how the Chiefs handle him. He can be a game wrecker. But without Jerome Baker and just all those guys in general, I think the Chiefs really should be able to run the ball, right? Like, it just kind of adds up to where this should be a game where the Chiefs should be able to dictate on the ground because they're just winning up front overall.
Should, yeah, absolutely. That definitely, they're going to be shorthanded. That's even more than I had realized on defense. Did I hear that? Is it Bradley? Is it Manny Agba still there as well?
He is still there. Yes, you're right. Yeah. Because he's now has to step up. He wasn't really playing that much before now.
And Agba and Ingram as their only pass rush are remaining after these other guys are out. That'll be interesting. Sub headline, not quite the Tyreek Hill return, but the Agba and Ingram returns as well.
Yeah, he was inactive for the week 15 and 16 games, or week 16, 17 games, excuse me. But then week 18, he did play probably because of injury. So, yeah, he's someone that, his probably best days are behind him too. But again, hey, it's the playoffs. These guys are guys that know how to do it. And hey, Melvin Ingram might have some revenge for us choking away his only shot at going to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Maybe he wants to send us early again,
Well, on offense, it looks like they're getting maybe a little bit healthier. They've got Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert, a couple of real speed factors in this game that could be returning. Last week, it sounds like they were close, but the medical staff determined that it was too risky for them to come back. Those two can make a big difference on offense.
Yeah, no, Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert definitely are guys that they haven't, Jalen Waddle's been off and on the field this year. Even when he starts, he leaves the field. Even in the Chiefs game, if we remember, he started the game, had to come off for a second. So he's someone that's always kind of dealing with the injury. But it sounded like they probably could have played week 18 if it was do or die. But they were locked into a playoff position. So they knew they were going to make the postseason. It was a matter of, wild card or home game. And yeah, I mean, you want them to get that home game, but not enough to where you're risking, further injury to two of your best players. So honestly, it was a good move by them to keep them out and have them ready for this game, because that is the one thing is I really feel like the Dolphins are going to really try to attack with Raheem Mostert, Devon A-Chain, try to take advantage of guys like Willie Gay, Nick Bolton, even Drew Tranquill, just in general, because I do think their misdirection, their ability to get outside with that speed, but like kind of make you take a second step the other way at first, so you get beat even further. That stuff's going to make a difference. So I really feel like those two guys, their speed is going to be a huge part of their offensive game plan. So I really feel like the Chiefs defense, it's going to be about the linebackers, man. As long as they play a good game, as long as they read their stuff and kind of are ahead of the game, the Chiefs defense should be fine. But if the Dolphins can take advantage of those guys, that's where I feel like they could find some success.
Yeah, and then getting back to Tyreek Hill, I mean, there's still obviously that threat anytime he's on the field. you have to cover every inch of that turf. And he's certainly going to be motivated. I think he's going to feed off of the crowd one way or the other, whether it's positive cheering or boos or otherwise. He's going to be ready to show what he can do, or just kind of take it to the Chiefs whenever he can. So it's going to be a fun matchup in that regard. Obviously, there's no lack of motivation when you're in the playoffs. It's just a matter of who can execute and who can make plays.
Right. And I really feel like it's going to be Tyreek versus the crowd, and it's going to be awesome. But that's the thing is, Mike McDaniel's a great offensive coach. He does he's like Andy Reid, where he's going to install wrinkles for specific teams that are going to, because he sees deficiencies in the defense and try to attack those. So, the Chiefs did not have Nick Bolton the first matchup. And so I do think that's an important key here, that he's going to be playing. But I really feel like they need to be careful. And honestly, they should be playing Tranquil almost over Gay, I think, at that will position, just because I think Tranquil is just a more sound player a lot of times. And I think Willie can get over his skis, over anticipate, and get taken advantage of over the middle in the pass game, even in the run game too. So I'd love to see the Chiefs trust the guys that, like Tranquil and Bolton, who are going to be sound tacklers, fill the gaps correctly for the most part, and let Willie maybe not play as much this game. Nothing against Willie. I just feel like this is one of those games where those kind of inconsistent guys can really get picked at as the game goes.
Yeah. Do you think Bolton's kind of back to himself? It seems like the first game or so back from injury, he struggled a little bit, got picked on a little bit, especially in the passing game. Does it look like he's rounding back into form?
Yeah, he's definitely played better. Like that Bengals game, he definitely was playing better, in terms of filling the run lane and stuff. But yeah, no, I think in general though, you just need sure tacklers with guys like A-Chain and Mostert, because if you have guys that are going to allow people to slip off at the second level, you don't want these guys getting into the third level. So that's where Bolton really comes in handy, where you just need someone that's gonna, if he gets hands on them, they're coming to the ground. And I think you saw, that Raiders game, he had some, maybe some hesitations, and maybe he just wasn't playing at full speed in that last drive. Not full speed, but just, in terms of, he just didn't have the instinct maybe that he would if he was, not coming back from an injury. Maybe by now, hopefully, he's feeling it, where he's shooting gaps. He's really, anticipating stuff. And again, we need stuff like that, where a guy like A-Chain, he just set the NFL record for single season yards per carry, minimum 100 carries, because he can blow up if he gets to the third level. He's a track guy from Texas A&M. So the Chiefs really got to make sure they have sound tacklers in the game.
Absolutely, that'll be key. Let's talk. We got a couple bigger picture mailbag questions. Excuse me, Jake Wilson at Jake for now. Charles Omenihu and Mike Edwards made the play of the game against the Chargers. How would you rate all of the Chiefs' first-year free agent additions after the first regular season here?
Well, that's the thing. Charles Omenihu is definitely getting to the point where, he's going to be an important player next year too. And it seems like he's really coming on, like this last down the stretch. Obviously he didn't play the first 6 games of the season. So he's someone that I think is suddenly looking like a very good contract, right? Because he looks like, he was someone that I was worried, how good he could be on the edge and early downs, just as a traditional defensive end. Maybe his most significant plays really would just come from being an inside rusher on pass down situationally. But man, that guy is disrupting on the edge from inside, no matter what play, no matter what, run, pass, he's just doing it all, man. And so I think he's going to be a starter next year, opposite Karlaftis, while FAU continues to transition. And so, yeah, I think, Omenihu's A. I think you got to give him an A at least, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sacks in 6 straight games, or at least a portion of a sack in 6 straight games now, coming on when you need him the most. I think he can be a great complementary pass rusher in the playoffs, and somebody that can really feast when Chris Jones is on as well. Looking through the rest of the list, obviously Drew Tranquil, I think, also gets an A. I think he's been central to this defense, and somebody that can handle whatever role he's in. I think they can use him against the pass, against the run. He can play that multiple positions on that linebacker room. Really, really been a valuable addition, especially for the price.
Yeah, no, Tranquil's almost should be like an A plus, just because the price factors in. Amenahue, honestly, too. I thought about this the other day. I want to point this out. It just feels like such a Spags DN that in terms of like he almost looks like he plays like now it's escaping me the big dude 3 names, not as many fingers.
Jason Pierre-Paul.
Jason Pierre-Paul. Hey, I remember I got there somehow, right? We got there somehow. So, I mean, that's an all-pro. He had an all-pro season at one point under Spags. It's the kind of DN that Spags likes to have, and so there's a chance we haven't seen the best from Amenahue. But there's also Mike Edwards, who has just been such a playmaker. Obviously had the fumble, scoop and score this last week. I do think he's been inconsistent on the back end to some extent as a full-time free safety, but they didn't sign him to be a full-time free safety, right? Brian Cook was supposed to be the full-time free safety. He's just injured right now. So I'd still give that even, I want to say an A for that, but I'll say a B plus just because I do think Edwards, it hasn't been as strong a player as the other two.
Yeah, I think the real controversial one is going to be Jawan Taylor. Biggest contract they gave out, one of the most important guys that they brought in, and certainly a mixed bag of results from him this season. The penalties obviously were completely out of control all year long. He had his moments where he had some struggles blocking, but overall got the job done, I guess. I mean, is that maybe I give it a C? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say C plus because the thing here is that I know no one wants to hear this part of it, but there is room for improvement over the last the next 3 years of his contract, and offensive tackles definitely can these are the years. I mean, he's not even at the best years of his career, for a lot of offensive tackles, and so I do think they maybe he maybe wasn't as good as maybe they paid him to be right off the bat, right? But I do think he can develop into a player by next year, even the last couple of years of his contract, where he is worth the money they're giving him. And he's playing a lot more sound football. They've gotten rid of the penalties. I really feel like the penalty stuff is something that you just can't correct in the season, and it really screwed him up. I mean, that stuff, having to always think about that, having to kind of adjust your snap, timing, all that. I can imagine that screws with you as an offensive tackle who's been trying to get that rhythm down for an entire career. So I do think he could be a much better player next year, and we're looking at the deal much more fondly in the future years.
Absolutely, I think there's still an opportunity there, and what's the alternative? There's not a lot of other options. It's got to work out. He's got to be a starting tackle for this team for the next couple of years. There's no choice in the matter. Sonny Durad from the Gmail account. Why, as fans, do we give players the benefit of the doubt when they're rookies? But as soon as they're second-year players, we hold them to a higher standard, the same as what you would a veteran. I've never heard anyone say, oh, he's just a second-year player, be patient. Sure, it varies by position, but is that the case that we don't expect players to develop significantly after their second year? Well, it's an interesting question given this Chiefs roster composition right now, because the second-year guys, it's a pretty tremendous draft class with Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, Sky Moore, obviously maybe some challenges there, but Brian Cook, Leo Chenal, Joshua Williams, they've got contributions up and down that draft class. Jalen Watson, Isaiah Pacheco, Najee Johnson. I mean, that is a completely a home run draft, even if Sky Moore never pans out, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe this is pointing at Sky a little bit, right? Because it seems like we've all kind of given up to an extent. But I think the reason is I really do think it's positionally. I think, it depends on the position when you're talking about how long it takes certain players to develop. Honestly, offensive skill position, like in terms of getting the ball and your function is to get the ball, run with it and make plays. Like it's got to be pretty quick, man, because there's really no excuse anymore and just in terms of how football has developed, as you're coming up, it's all 7-on-7, it's all, and there's so many receivers, so much competition at that spot, at those, skill position spots, that the best of the best really do rise to the top and are really deserving of, high picks or top 50, top 60 picks. All that to say, I think it's fair to kind of have a harder curve learning or harder expectation for running backs, for receivers, for even like playmaking tight ends. than it is for, let's say, defensive linemen, offensive linemen. I'd even say secondary players probably should get, it's tough because, you're either making plays from the secondary or not. So I don't know. I think it is by position. And I know he mentions that a little bit, but I do think when you're talking about receiver and running back, it's fair to be pretty hard on them if they're not showing stuff by their second year.
Yeah, I mean, you want to say that the receiver position is pretty complex under Andy Reid and give people the benefit of the doubt that way. But Sky Moore's played a ton of snaps. He's had a lot of opportunities, and he's not shown any progress. And to me, if you're showing progress, then we can talk. Like, you don't have to be an All Pro in your second year, but you have to be better than you were as a rookie. And Sky Moore, frankly, just wasn't. Now Isaiah Pacheco pretty much came out of the cannon, right? like he just
Yeah,
really that was a
exactly.
home run pretty much right away. So, that the contrast between those two is definitely interesting. Um, yeah, I think this will be an unusual draft class, the 2022 class, just because so many of those guys hit, especially late in the draft. Williams and Watson, Pacheco. And Najee Johnson was looking really good his
Yeah.
second training camp as well. I think he's going to be on the team next year and probably a factor. So this is going to be a really unusual draft class where you have so many contributors up and down the draft. This year's the 2023 class. I think you've got a couple of guys who will develop in their second year, who you didn't see much from. Some of them we saw just this last week in FAU and BJ Thompson. Those will be a couple of guys who you should see a jump going into their second year, as
But
opposed to the rookie year.
But to his question, and Felix is a good example of this, and Nate Christensen, our film analyst at the site, actually tweeted this out, and I agree with him that, we, as much as it's hard to say about a first round pick, and I understand people are going to say whatever that you can have your opinion about how, a first round pick should contribute, but, there could be a chance that Felix does need, still even another year to really, come into his own. And we may not see, where Felix pops until maybe even that third year. He's such a young player. It's something I kind of mentioned even going into the draft, that he is a very young, very raw prospect in terms of his physical skill set, physical attributes. But
Yeah.
it's something that he can grow into. I absolutely think so, and could be a monster at some point. He's just, maybe not as strong as he needs to be, just needs to fill out a little more. But to his question, I do think Felix is someone that I think, if he doesn't have that jump next year, people are going to obviously come after it and say, oh, wow, but I think he could be a good example of, by year 3, year 4, we're saying, oh, okay, this is what they saw and why, it was worth the wait.
Yeah, look at the previous year's draft class. Again, another home run of sorts, a different sort of home run. Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey, obviously those guys were starters day one. Joshua Kando hasn't really panned out. Noah Gray is starting to, though. I mean, Noah Gray has really shown some progress this season as compared to the previous year. Cornell Powell still hanging around, probably by a thread, but Trey Smith obviously is there. Been a starter from day one as well. But I think Noah Gray from that class is the one that you think about to say, hey, he didn't do a whole lot early on. He's sort of rounding into form and becoming somebody that is at least somewhat of a reliable target, a secondary target for this team.
Yeah, but even then, I would say, we know his ceiling, and and that was proven. As much as we thought maybe he could be a legit receiving weapon, I think he only has so high of a ceiling. He's proven to this point, and I think that goes again to the kind of the point earlier that if you're a skill position player, you either kind of have it or you don't right away. You're either because George Kittle was a 5th round pick. You're either like, oh shoot, you look like that with the ball in your hands, or Noah Gray, your 5th round pick, where you're solid and you can work up to being this really solid tight end too. You're right, he's a very reliable player, but it's still we can't rely. You're not going to be relying on him to be your tight end 1 going into anything.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, let's think about the rest of the playoff picture. We want to talk a little bit about the what could happen after this game. You don't want to jump ahead or overlook the Dolphins by any means, but what's the rest of the field look like, and what happens if the Chiefs do happen to get past the Dolphins this week?
All right, so yeah, the playoff picture is always kind of funny because people don't realize that some people don't realize it's not a straight bracket. It depends on who wins, who loses, right? So Chiefs win; they're the 3 seed. They would be the highest seed remaining outside of the 2 seeds. So if the 2 seed wins, which is the Buffalo Bills now, they beat the Dolphins. They're the AFC East champs. They're playing the Steelers on Saturday or Sunday, excuse me. If the Bills win, it'd be Chiefs Bills because they are the 2 and the 3 seed. The 2 seed is going to play the highest seed remaining. And the 1 seed, the Ravens, who have the bye week, is going to play the lowest seed remaining. But if the Bills were to get upset by Pittsburgh somehow, which that would be hard to see, honestly, the Pittsburgh Steelers would go to Baltimore, and then the Chiefs would actually be welcoming in either the Browns or the Texans. And so it really just depends on what the Bills do against the Steelers in that 2-7 matchup. It's going to be snowy there, too. It's supposed to be even windier up there. It's going to be a lot of snow, which does give any team a recipe for an upset, right? I do think, that helps the Steelers.
Maybe 4 or 5 Josh Allen turnovers in this.
Hey, he tried to lose this last game in the Week 18, man. That guy did his best to give the Dolphins the AFC East. So
Cleveland's looking like a really interesting team this time of year. I don't know that a lot of teams really want to play Cleveland right now.
Right. And, that's where I think, let's say it kind of does go chalk and the Chiefs do have to go to Buffalo, play them in the divisional round. I absolutely do think Joe Flacco and the Browns could go into Baltimore and pull off the upset in the divisional round. But
how fun would that be? Because then if the Chiefs happen to win at Buffalo, then the Chiefs would host the AFC Championship game again.
Yes, I know, right? There's a few paths to the Arrowhead Invitational still being back on. It could still happen, but no, I do think though if the Chiefs are the ones who matched up with the Browns in case the Bills went down in the first round, I think that's where we're talking about this week missing the edge rushers. That's really nice. Myles Garrett, he's on that edge for them, and there's no escaping that. So that'll be a really tough matchup if they get to that point. That's when you want to avoid the top edge rushers, I would say, in the postseason this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing. I mean, Baltimore, the 1 seed, they had it in 2019. They blew their opening divisional round game. Could it happen again? I don't know. I definitely feel like it's destiny for Baltimore to get to the AFC Championship, host that. But who knows, man? It could be the Chiefs. Could be the Chiefs matching up with them, kind of, the passing of the torch maybe, or the attempt to, but the Chiefs snagging it away from them and not letting that happen. That'd be great to see. So, yeah, I'm excited, man. It's going to be a fun playoff game starting right off the bat Saturday. I'm going to be there, like I mentioned. Tyreek's turn to Arrowhead is a great way to start off this playoff run. All good vibes. The football gods are on our side. The AFC is up for the grabs, this year. So the Chiefs got to take advantage. So let's do it, Chiefs Kingdom. If there are tickets available, man, bundle up, get out there. It's a memorable experience, and I think it's going to be a heck of a game. I think the Chiefs are going to come out, get it done, and we'll be on to the divisional round. So appreciate you listening. Appreciate you joining us as always. Make sure you're checking out the website. Make sure you're checking out everything we're doing ahead of the Dolphins game. I'm going to be doing some film review stuff with Nate and Caleb on the YouTube page. I'll have 5 things to watch heading into the game. It is going to be an awesome week in Chiefs Kingdom leading up to a win over the Dolphins. So I'm excited for it. Hope you guys are too. Let's do it. All right. Catch you guys next time.